What's up, guys? It's me, the sicko that decided it was a good idea to go out and watch actual game film of the USA basketball scrimmage that Cooper Flagg participated in to get a feel for what he looks like playing against guys that are not 16-year-olds on the EYBL circuit. And I'll tell you what, kid is pretty damn good. Oh man, it was certainly eye-opening to see what he was able to do playing for the USA. I believe it was the USA select team against the USA Olympic team. During the scrimmage, the portion that apparently was available to the media and that was allowed to be filmed, I found a full video of what I believe was the fourth quarter of that scrimmage, and I watched all of the possessions that Cooper Flagg participated in. And a couple takeaways that I think are worth noting, and then a bigger picture talk discussion I want to get into about what that means for Duke. But let's start with this. I thought one thing that was really impressive to me was the improvement that he's made as a ball handler against pressure. You know, he was bringing the ball up, he was operating pick and rolls, he was doing all of that against a guy in Drew Holiday that is one of the better on ball defenders in the NBA. There was one possession in that game where or in that scrimmage where he came off of a ball screen and Anthony Davis switched on to him and he stepped into a three, shooting it over Anthony Davis, which kind of puts together or puts to doubt any question marks that you might have about where his release point is or his ability to get a shot off against larger defenders, because I don't think you're going to find a bigger defender than Anthony Davis. So that was impressive. He hit a catch and shoot three from the corner. There were a couple of possessions that really stood out in terms of his ability to make plays with his athleticism, which should come as no surprise to anybody that's watched any mixtape involving Cooper Flagg of late. And I thought that he's come along offensively in the sense that I did have questions after watching him last year in Augusta about the way that he will be able to deal with defenders that can kind of climb up under him, right? I think he'll be fine against guys his size. I think he'll be fine against bigger players. He can kind of create that mismatch. But could he do all the things that he wanted to be able to do if you're going to put a Drew Holiday, a 6'3", 220-pound bowling ball that can climb up in him and try to take away what he wants to do as a ball handler? He does have a little bit of a um, high. He doesn't. What's the word I'm looking for? He handles the ball a little bit higher than maybe you necessarily would like. But I thought that he did pretty well, albeit in like five possessions of a scrimmage. But I thought that he did pretty well dealing with that kind of defender. And that is precisely the kind of defender that I would have some concern about him. Concern's the wrong word, but that's precisely the kind of defender that, in theory, would give him some trouble based off of the player that I saw last summer. I was also really impressed with what he was doing defensively. They put him on Steph Curry and had him chasing Steph Curry off of screens. They put him on Drew Holiday and had him picking up 94 feet defending Drew Holiday. Um, I thought that he made a couple of plays in the passing lanes. One time he was called for a foul in the passing lane that I don't think was necessarily a foul, but would have been a steal against Devin Booker. There was another possession where he kind of got a little bit out of position as the ball was getting rotated and he was late to get back to help. And he got beat off the dribble by Drew Holiday. That led to a foul and two free throws. Um, and like obviously he was just absolutely bullied inside by Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis, who are two of the best big guys in college basketball and significantly bigger than Cooper Flagg. He's 17. That's going to happen. I'm not worried about that at all. The weight will come with him. So defensively, like he looked like he's going to end up being exactly what we thought he was, an absolutely elite defender that can make a lot of energy plays. And I think overall, kind of what he will be offensively, like he's continuing to get better. And I think it's always a positive sign when you can see a player in a different setting and they've shown improvements based off of what you the last time you saw him. So he's clearly worked on his game. He's clearly not satisfied. I don't think that should come as a surprise to anyone. Um, but I think more than anything else, this is kind of what I wanted to get into, and the reason why I wanted to jump out here and get some thoughts out, because I think he handled the physicality and the toughness really, really well. And that's probably the biggest question I have about him and about Duke heading into next season, right? So, the biggest concern that I had with Cooper Flagg and the way that Duke has kind of built their roster is that you are putting all of your eggs in one basket of a kid that is 17 years old. And to put into context how young he is, if he was born, I think it's like 11 days later or 12 days later, he would not be eligible for the 2025 NBA draft. There are I very, very sincerely doubt that there will be a younger player in college basketball this season than Cooper Flagg. I don't think there was a younger player in college basketball this past season than Cooper Flagg. He's going to be one of the youngest players that we've ever seen play college basketball, point blank, period. And I know how talented he is. I have no doubt about what he is as a prospect. But when you consider the fact that we're in a day and age where college basketball is older and better than I think we've seen probably since the one and done era started, right? Probably since the early entry era started, that you're relying on someone that is going to be at such a disadvantage when it comes to physicality, when it comes to experience, when it comes to maturity. And on paper, that is not necessarily something that I think is a great idea, especially in theory, right? We've seen over and over how much of a risk it is with a team like Kentucky last season, with a couple of recent Duke teams, that going all in on freshmen is maybe not the best way to build a roster in 2024. Hunter Dickinson is going to be 7 years older than Cooper Flagg, right? RJ Davis is a fifth-year senior. There are older and more veteran and stronger guys at every level of college basketball than there have been in recent years. But after watching him at some point, like, maybe he just is that good. Maybe the talent just will overtake everything else. Maybe the fact that I think Jon Scheyer did something really, really smart and went out and added a bunch of physicality, added a bunch of veteran presences around him, added a bunch of guys like Mason Gillis, like Sion James, um, like Malik Brown, bringing back a guy like a Tyrese Proctor, making sure that Caleb Foster is still there, making sure that there are some kind of veteran presences around him is really smart. And the more that I watched that scrimmage, the more I just kept thinking to myself that this is a player that is going to be more ready than maybe I gave him credit for at the start, right? And this is going to sound like I did not think Cooper Flagg was going to be. We put out a preseason All American list, and I said I had him as a second team All American in the preseason, right? And I feel like that was kind of low, but I was not going to overestimate the impact that a 17-year-old could have on college basketball in his first season there. But it just after seeing that, seeing the development that he's made, maybe I'm just overthinking things here. Maybe he really is different. And I will tell you this: as we get into this season, as we get into 2024-25 college basketball coverage, as we get into the meat of what will be a really, really fun and entertaining college basketball year, um, Cooper Flagg is going to be the poster boy. He's going to be the guy that if you are on Twitter, if you are on Instagram, if you are on TikTok, you're going to be overloaded with highlights. It's going to be the biggest talking point on NBC every single night, or on ESPN every single night. He is the face of Duke. He is going to be the number one pick. He is the most exciting and entertaining and social media highlight worthy prospect that we've seen since Zion. And he's going to a place in Duke that is an absolute juggernaut when it comes to social media production, social media interaction, the amount of pop that you get, the amount of publicity that you're going to get. Like, there is nothing better than a superstar playing for Duke when it comes to the interaction that you're going to get. Oh, and by the way, he also happens to be a white guy from Maine whose last name is Flagg. So it's going to be something that just overloads you for college basketball. And the one thing that I will say is this: don't let it be something that spoils how enjoyable he is to watch, right? Like, I understand that people hate Duke. I get it. Trust me. Um, but Cooper Flagg is going to be one of the more electric prospects that really is not something that epitomizes a typical Duke player that you would think of. Like, he's not a troll. In the way that, like, JJ Redick was in his time, right? He's not someone that's going to be flopping around like a Steve Wojciechowski or some of these other guys, right? And I do think that he is going to be, like, what makes him great is what he is on the defensive end of the floor and what he is as a teammate. Like, his as good as he is as a scorer, as dominant as he was um, in EYBL, like as exciting as it is to see him like do these things, like throw it off the backboard to himself and dunk it over people, as good as he will be defensively, and he is going to be a great defender, an elite defender, um, very much like first team All NBA defense in his range of outcomes. And I think there's a very good chance that he gets to that level. I think the biggest thing about him is like he is a winning basketball player. Like he makes the right plays, he makes the right reads, and he puts in the work and puts in the effort. And surrounding him with a bunch of junkyard dogs that understand what their roles are, and putting some shooters around him as well, it's really smart for Duke. And if he can translate what he did in this Team USA scrimmage to what he will do for Duke this season, Jon Scheyer is going to have a lot to work with this year for the Blue Devils. So that's all I wanted to get on here and say. I was really, really, really impressed, like the rest of the college basketball watching world, but I was really, really impressed with what I saw out of him in that Team USA scrimmage.